As you've been trying to come to terms with the whole topic of narcissism, inevitably, I know you've come across the notion of going no contact with that person. And sometimes that's the only thing you really can do or should do. You just got to get away from them. Other times you don't have that ability to completely remove yourself physically from their presence, but psychologically you still need to pull way back and make your interaction with them as minimal as you can possibly make it. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, and you've probably had this experience, when you've been engaging with a narcissist, it's not usually for, a day or two. And you think, that's not too good. I need to get away. I mean, sometimes you can get those early signs and you learn to move on. But your primary engagements with narcissists can sometimes last for months, years, decades, or perhaps your entire lifetime. And one of the things that has to happen in order for you to truly disengage from that person is you have to get some of the clutter out of your mind. These individuals are known for putting thoughts and ideas and notions into your mind that ultimately prove to be not at all good for you and certainly not true. And so it can leave you with lots of questions about who you are and the legitimacy of you being you. Have you ever noticed that, where you're getting away from that person and they just want to come back and say, well, there's a whole lot of things wrong with you, and you begin wondering, well, is that the case? So I want to go through several questions that can rattle you or stay with you as you are trying to break free from that narcissist. And as you're able to come to terms with these questions, I'm hoping it's going to be a springboard for you to find your freedom and your ability to live into yourself as you are meant to be and as you really should be. Now, the first question, I've already kind of touched on it, that many people will have as they're getting away from that narcissistic person. And that is there something wrong with me? And you can look back and recall lots of times when maybe you've responded poorly to that narcissist. And because that person can be very argumentative, and before you know it, you've been argumentative or you've been difficult and you've responded poorly. So then you begin asking, well, am I really the problem, or was I the horrible person? And you may have some evidence. Certainly the narcissist is going to want to throw evidence at you that would imply that that's the case. An analogy I like to use is, let's suppose that somebody's been with you, and while you're there talking with them, they have a stick and they keep jabbing you in the ribs, and you keep wincing. And then finally they just continue to jab you in the ribs, and then they want you to continue to act normal, but you can't because they're jabbing you in the ribs, and you explode. And then they look at you and say, man, you sure do have some anger issues. Narcissists are, in essence, jabbers. They jab you psychologically to the extent that they do pull out negative characteristics from you. Does that mean you're the problem? Well, it does mean that there are some things about you that you're going to need to come to terms with. You can certainly be in an ongoing growth mode, but it very commonly means you were responding to the very poor initiatives that narcissist was giving you, and had that not been the case, you wouldn't be in the situation that you are now. Or another very common question that can rattle you as you're getting away from that narcissist, and that is, do other people interpret me in the same ways as that narcissist has interpreted me? Now, the narcissist is going to be more than happy to let you know so everybody else sees the same thing I do. You're no good, or you don't do things well, or maybe you've just been so accustomed to their strong and loud and overpowering voice that you hardly even think of anything other than what they're trying to tell you. And when people have been nice to you and accepting of you, it kind of leaves you wondering, well, yeah, but I've been told so many times there's something wrong with me. What's the truth? Do others interpret me the same as the narcissist? One of the things that I'm hopeful of is, as you get away and you have more of your sense of uniqueness and distinction, you allow yourself to be seen and known as your own unique person. It may feel a little different for you to just say, I'm going to do things quite differently and present myself differently. But hopefully over time that will show up, the real you will show up, and others will be able to make their interpretations appropriately. And if they can't or won't, that's on them, that's not on you. You don't have to live for their thoughts and feelings toward you. Or another corollary question to that one is, if I do tell my story, Will anyone believe me? Does it mean that I'm being disloyal, or will I sound like I'm just having some very rotten kind of experiences that I'm trying to just justify? And again, we go back and say, well, interestingly, when you have been on the receiving end of a lot of narcissistic impropriety, a lot of people actually do see it. And many of them actually have had thoughts in their mind, when are you going to get away from that? And it could be that your believability factor will be higher than perhaps you might think. And it does not mean, if you do tell others your story, that you're being disloyal. By the way, I don't think that as you get away from a narcissist that you just have to blab your story all over the place left and right, because that can almost give the impression that you're becoming just like that narcissist. You're so deeply caught up in contempt and anger and harshness that becomes a defining feature. But there are times when you do need to talk with people about who you are and what you've been through. Hopefully you'll be believed, and if not, you need to be a believable person in the way you live nonetheless. Now, another question that often rattles people as they're getting away, and that is anyone ever going to love me again? Is anyone ever going to accept me again? Or if it's maybe in a work setting, will anyone want to do business with me again after I've been with this narcissistic person and I've been told how terrible I am? After all I've been through, am I just damaged goods? Let's anchor down on one very strong thought, and I hope you hear me down to the core of my heart here, because this is something that I deeply believe. The best growth in life doesn't happen because everything is going really well and you're there to tell the story. Your best growth happens in the aftermath of your pain and your difficulty. And so, will anyone ever want to accept you again? I don't know, but let's just say that I'm hoping that you will be poised to take your life into such a much further place of goodness and maturity and intentionality that if anyone does make the attempt to get to know you, they're going to realize whatever it is you've been through has actually become a springboard for growth. I appreciate that. If they can think that way, and a lot of people will, because a lot of folks have also had similar experiences, then you're going to be poised to actually have deeper and more meaningful relationships. Another similar question, am I too damaged to move forward? And the answer is no, you're not. Let's take your strain and your difficulty and use it as an ability for you to show empathy and for you to have a certain amount of realness and authenticity as you engage with other individuals. Now, one really powerful question that you might be thinking, and that is, was I just brainwashed when I was with that narcissist? Was that all just, that person just feeding me full of false information? And I'm hoping you can answer the question. In many cases, yeah, that's exactly what was going on. Keep in mind that narcissists are not into truth. Narcissists are into their angle. And so they make up the truth as they want it to be to suit whatever their narrative is. And when we talk about being brainwashed, we talk about you being filled with all sorts of ideas and notions that are completely improper, but leave you feeling weak and dependent. And that's what that narcissistic person wants. And so you have to remind yourself, I'm having to learn how to go back and recoup and reestablish my good interpretations of good living and my interpretations of what it means for me to be me. So yes, there was some brainwashing. Now, what I want to do is I want to go backwards, and I want you to think about some of the characteristics that you had when you were living with that narcissistic individual. And then it can kind of help you realize that you were predisposed to have these rattling kinds of questions. For example, the narcissist, if you remember correctly, wanted to have dominance over you. They used threats toward you. They would withhold affirmation or acceptance or love toward you, leaving you wondering if you were ever going to be okay. They would gaslight you and make you have all sorts of wrongful questions. They would blame shift. They would triangulate. They would play you off of other individuals so that you don't know where you necessarily stand. They would hold you in contempt. They could stonewall you. They would refuse to be accountable toward you. So were you brainwashed? Yes, and let's even go so much further as to say that's called psychological abuse. And if you have a long history of engagement with somebody who's willing to treat you that way, it means that you were abused. And no wonder you have these kinds of questions as you move forward. So let's wrap with a few thoughts about how you can move forward. First, I'm hoping that you can pull back and make it your objective to find understanding about what real good living is like. And if it means that you have to talk with trusted friends or a therapist to get there, learn how to objectify what you've been through and understand the facts of the matter. Second, be starkly honest about yourself, about what happened to you as you went through it, and your hurts and your pain and your improper anger back, or some of the ways that you look back and think, I wish I hadn't have done it like that. Be honest and own it and recognize when you're with somebody who's dysfunctional, there's a bleed over effect and you got pulled into it, but you want to make an adjustment. And then that leads to another thought, and that is make sure you focus on what your understanding of the better way of life is going to be. Take your experiences that you've had with that brainwashing, abusive narcissist and use it as resolve that says, I'm going to be the one that stands for dignity and respect and civility. That's who I'm going to be. And then finally, above all, knowing that you've been through a relationship with somebody who's been very difficult, commit yourself to the supremacy of love. Narcissists don't know how to love. They didn't love you. They didn't know how to affirm. But I'm hoping that you can recognize that you were made for love. You have the ability to love, and it begins with you learning to love yourself. Would you do that? Love yourself. And in doing so, I'm hoping that it can position you to be someone who knows how to live into others with that goodness and love. I want you to be that kind of a person. As you move forward, don't be rattled by those little questions. Learn from it and then use it as a springboard for being the better alternative. I do hope that you get some good insight from videos such as this. And if you haven't already done so, go beneath and hit that subscribe button, and we'll make you apprised of more videos that come along. If you need to unpack this with a licensed professional counselor, I encourage you to do so. All through my career, I've been looking for people to refer people to, and right now online counseling is very popular, and we have a group that we've vetted that are a trusted sponsor, and we have a link below that can help you with that. In addition, we have links to our website, survivingnarcissism.tv, Dr. Les Carter. And by the way, join me on Facebook, Surviving Narcissism, every Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Central Time. I do a live feed on that. In addition, we have links to my books and online video workshops. I think you can tell that I feel deeply about this. I work with people who have been on the receiving end of improper abuse and brainwashing, and it's my privilege to be a part of helping guide you through some of this, and I want you to go to the better place. That's what you deserve. That's what you can do, and in doing so, I hope that you find your place of peace.